a brief calm before a major political event. But what unfolded in the sky would change everything. Before we dive in, comment where you're watching from and subscribe for more gripping stories. First class was a floating oasis, plush leather, seats, gentle lighting, and silence broken only by the soft clink of ice in Caroline's lemonade. With her laptop open, she reviewed the draft of a speech meant to rally a conservative base. A few seats away sat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, progressive and poised, scrolling through her tablet, headphones on, expression unreadable. In the cockpit, Captain Daniel Pierce, a 45-year-old former Air Force pilot, scanned the passenger. Manifest. His eyes paused. Caroline Leavitt, a name that stirred unease. She wasn't just a passenger. She symbolized everything he believed was eroding democracy. He spoke calmly over the intercom. "We're passing through a restricted signal area. Please turn off all electronics until further notice." The announcement was standard, but to Pierce, it was the first move in a silent confrontation. Moments later, Pierce exited the cockpit, crisp in uniform, every step deliberate. He paused at Leavitt's seat. "You're Caroline Leavitt, right? The one who criticized Congresswoman Crockett last week?" Leavitt looked up, cautious. "Yes. Is there a problem?" "She's a respected woman who stands for justice. Your comments were beneath your office." A hush fell. Passengers glanced up, tension thickening. "Captain," Caroline replied, calm but pointed. "You fly the plane, not thought police the passengers." Pierce's jaw clenched. He spoke again, this time to the whole cabin. "This flight represents values, fairness, progress. Miss Leavitt's presence challenges that." Caroline didn't flinch. "I paid for this seat, and my views are protected. If you have a problem, take it up with the airline." An attendant, Emma, stepped forward nervously. "Captain, I believe there's no issue with Miss Leavitt's seat." Pierce snapped. "Emma, you're here to serve, not to question." Then he turned back to Caroline. "Your views make you a concern. I suggest you move." "You're not suggesting. You're ordering, because of my politics. That's not authority. That's abuse." He leaned in. "Crockett fights for unity. You stir division. This flight deserves better." Caroline stood. Her voice didn't waver. "Then show evidence. Or sit down." The air in the cabin was razor thin. Emma hovered nearby, unsure. Pierce's mask of calm cracked slightly. "Emma, get her bag," he ordered. "You're making a mistake, Captain," Caroline warned. "I'm not going anywhere. And you'll answer for this." Passengers watched silently. Emma moved slowly, hands shaking. Pierce gave her a final command. "Prepare the emergency exit. We'll land if she refuses." "You're digging your own grave," Leavitt said. "Fire in her. Ice. And the world will hear about it." The plane began descending. The captain announced, "Due to a non-compliant passenger, we'll be making an emergency landing." A harsh wind hit the cabin as the emergency door opened on a rural Georgia airstrip. Pierce grabbed her bag, tossed it out, and turned to her. "Get out!" "You'll face me out there," she said. "This isn't over." He pushed her toward the door. She stumbled but held her ground. Outside, the air was bitter. Dirt clung to her heels. Her phone had no signal. Isolated but unbroken, Caroline picked up her bag and walked. Each step was a vow. She reached a small town after nearly an hour. Lights from Wilson's diner glowed like hope. Inside, the owner, Mary, welcomed her with surprise. "You look like hell. Come in." Caroline called her team in D.C. using an old rotary phone. Her voice was crisp. "Call legal. We're suing the airline. And post this to X. Make it viral." Mary handed her a steaming mug of coffee. "You're that gal from TV. Didn't deserve that." Caroline offered the first smile of the day. "Thank you. This is just the beginning." She sat at a corner table typing, "I'm Caroline Leavitt, removed from a flight for my political views. This isn't just personal. It's abuse of power. I won't..." "Be silent." Mary looked over her shoulder. You know how to stir things up, don't you? Caroline nodded, gaze locked on the screen. Now it's his turn to answer. Outside, under Georgia's gray sky, the fight had just begun. I want him to lose everything. His license, his reputation, everything. Harper gave a cold smile. We'll sue for assault, abuse of authority, and discrimination. The airline won't walk away clean either. They let a pilot play judge and jury. She slid a document toward Livet. Are you ready to go on air? Your voice could turn this into a movement. Livet didn't hesitate. I've been ready since I stepped off that plane. That evening, she appeared on a major conservative talk show, studio lights framing her determined expression. The host, his voice booming, leaned in. Caroline, why do you think the pilot targeted you? Was this an attack on conservative values? Livet's voice was clear and unwavering. This isn't just about me. Captain Pierce abused his authority to punish someone for their political beliefs. If we let this go, who's next? Her words struck a chord. The interview went viral, igniting. Social media. Supporters branded Pierce a radical leftist. Others defended him as a progressive hero. But most, from media commentators to average citizens, condemned his actions as a dangerous abuse of power. One viral post read, Pierce thought he was king of the sky. Sir Justice for Caroline will set him straight. Livet scrolled through the wave of support. The loneliness she had felt in Georgia was being replaced by strength, fueled by public backing. Meanwhile, confined to a hotel near the airport, Captain Daniel Pierce met with his lawyer, a weary, middle-aged man. Daniel, the evidence is stacked against you, the lawyer said. Video, witness accounts, they've got it all. We need a strategy. Fast. Pierce clenched his fists, eyes flickering. I just wanted to protect what's right. Livet represents division. His lawyer shook his head. The court doesn't care about ideals, they care about facts. And you went too far. In a downtown office, Livet reviewed the lawsuit documents. With Harper. We'll demand damages, Harper said, and ensure Pierce never flies again. The airline will be forced to change its policies. Livet nodded, picturing Pierce's face as he forced her off that plane. Now justice was approaching, and it made her smile. Journalists contacted fellow passengers. Most were neutral, but firm. I don't care about politics, one older businessman told a reporter. Captain Pierce acted like he owned that plane. No one deserves what Miss Livet endured. Their testimonies, along with security footage, struck a fatal blow to Pierce's defense. In Washington, D.C., courtroom benches filled with reporters, activists, and citizens. Tension thickened the air. Caroline Livet sat at the plaintiff's table in a black blazer, her eyes sharp and composed. Across from her, Daniel Pierce slouched in a plain shirt, his pilot's uniform gone, his face lined with fatigue. The judge, an older woman with silver hair, struck her gavel. We begin the case of Miss Caroline Livet versus Captain Daniel Pierce and the airline. Harper stood, her tone calm but razor sharp. Today, we expose a blatant abuse of power. Captain Pierce turned a plane into his courtroom, punishing Miss Livet for her political views. This case isn't just hers, it's for everyone silenced by bias. Livet took the stand. Under dozens of watchful eyes, her voice carried strength. Captain Pierce targeted me for what I represent. He didn't just remove me, he tried to strip away my dignity. Reporters scribbled furiously. Some spectators nodded in quiet agreement. Harper played security footage of the incident, Pierce tossing Livet's bag and pushing her toward the emergency exit. The thud echoed in the courtroom. Pierce lowered his head. Emma's statement followed. Captain Pierce acted erratically. He ignored protocol, treated her like a threat, with no cause. When Pierce took the stand, he tried to steady his voice. I acted to maintain order. Miss Livet's presence might have caused unrest. I believed I was protecting the values Congresswoman Crockett stands for. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Harper's voice cut in, sharp as ice. You are not law enforcement. You're a pilot. Your job is to fly, not punish passengers for their politics. Do you have any evidence of a threat?" Pierce said nothing. His silence said everything. In closing arguments, Harper faced the bench. Like a general. "This is a warning to all who believe power grants them impunity. We demand justice, not only for Miss Livett, but for every person oppressed by bias." Applause erupted. The judge's gavel struck once more. After review, the court finds Captain Daniel Pierce guilty of assault and abuse of authority. He is permanently stripped of his pilot's license and must pay $500,000 in damages. The airline is liable for additional compensation and required to enact policy reforms. The room erupted. Reporters swarmed. Pierce bowed his head, vacant-eyed, ideals shattered. Livett stood, shaking Harper's hand. "Thank you," she said softly. "This is justice." Outside, supporters raised "Yachter Justice for Caroline" signs high. Sunlight struck her face. She exhaled, as if releasing all the fear and fury that had brought her here. Later that night, in Miami's glowing neon, Livett took the stage at a conservative conference. Her navy blazer fit perfectly, her golden hair gleaming. The crowd roared. She stepped to the microphone. "This lawsuit wasn't just about me," she said. "It was for anyone, ever silenced for their beliefs." The cheers were thunderous. She scanned the crowd, strangers transformed into allies. Her mind flashed back to the rotary phone in the small Georgia town where this all began. "I want to thank the kind strangers who helped me when I was stranded," she added, voice softening. "They reminded me, despite our divisions, there's always someone ready to stand by you." Far away in a dim suburban apartment, Pierce sat motionless. His old uniform hung in the closet, a relic of a past life. He watched Livett's speech on television, eyes hollow. Social media continued its barrage, every headline calling him the biased pilot cut deep. On stage, Livett's voice sharpened. "We can't let people like Captain Pierce use their position to silence others. Today's verdict is a warning. No one is above the law." The crowd erupted once more, but she raised a hand. "And yet, justice isn't revenge," she said. "It's building a world where everyone is respected, no matter their beliefs." The airline's headquarters was steeped in tension. Facing a wave of public outrage, the leadership announced a sweeping reform plan, mandatory pilot retraining, a direct passenger complaint channel, and a public pledge to prevent future abuses of power. At a press conference, a spokesperson stood before a forest of microphones and declared, "We apologize to Miss Levitt and commit to meaningful change." But online, skepticism ran high. Many demanded more transparency and accountability. From her hotel room, Levitt watched the press conference. She nodded slightly. Real change takes time, she knew, but the court's ruling had cracked open the door. Meanwhile, in his dim apartment, Pierce shut off the television, unable to endure the sight of Levitt's rising image. He stepped onto the balcony, gazing at the quiet city below. He thought back to the moment he forced her off the plane, the blind certainty that had led to his downfall. He had dreamed of upholding justice. Instead, he had turned his ideals into a weapon. Now, grounded with no skies to conquer and no colleagues to speak with, Pierce faced the cruelest punishment: isolation. Back in Miami, after her rousing speech, Caroline Levitt stepped off stage, shaking hands with supporters. A young girl gripped her hand, eyes wide with admiration. "You're my inspiration," the girl whispered. Levitt smiled warmly, her heart full. She pulled out her phone and posted, "Thank you, Miami. Thank you all. This victory is ours. Keep fighting for truth." The post rapidly amassed thousands of likes. She had become more than a plaintiff. She was now a symbol of resilience. That night, Levitt sat by her hotel window, gazing out at the glittering skyline. From a tarmac in Georgia to a courtroom in D.C., from being silenced to finding her voice, she had come far. Pierce had tried to crush her, but instead he gave her a bigger stage. She sipped water, her eyes bright with determination. This was just the beginning. Across the city, Pierce stared up at the night sky as planes soared overhead, reminders of a life he could never return to. He would never fly again. And that truth cut deeper than any fine. The next morning in Washington, D.C., golden light spilled into the halls of power. Caroline Leavitt stood by her White House office window, her gray blazer crisp, her gaze unwavering. The lawsuit against Captain Daniel Pierce wasn't just a personal win, it had become a torch for those daring to confront injustice. Her phone buzzed with notifications. Hashtags like Backward Justice for Caroline were trending, transforming her case into a broader movement. Leavitt sat at her desk, opened her laptop, and began to type, "Today, I return to work with greater conviction than ever." This lawsuit wasn't about revenge. It was a reminder. No one has the right to silence another for their beliefs. We must build a world where every voice is respected. Keep sharing, keep fighting, and keep believing in justice. She hit send. Within minutes, responses poured, words of support, personal stories, and calls for reform. Leavitt smiled. A community was growing, stronger by the day. Back in his apartment, Pierce sat alone at his kitchen table. The morning paper lay open. Airline announces reforms after Leavitt lawsuit. The article outlined new training protocols, transparent complaint systems, reforms sparked by Leavitt's determination. Pierce turned the page, his face heavy with regret. Once a man who believed he stood for honor, now he was confined by the walls of his own mistakes. The $500,000 judgment and his termination had cost him his career. But the true punishment was this: being forgotten. Old friends distanced themselves. Former colleagues stayed silent. Each night he asked himself, where did I go wrong? At her desk, Leavitt received an email from Mary, the woman who had helped her in Georgia. "Kid, I'm proud of you. This town's talking about you." Leavitt replied with a grateful heart, "Mary, I wouldn't be here without you. I'll visit soon." She closed her laptop and looked out the window, watching as the city stirred awake. This victory, she knew, was not the end. It was the start of something greater. Leavitt's story continued to echo across social media. Posts and videos sparked national debates on political polarization, abuse of authority, and the power of community. A journalist wrote, "Caroline Leavitt turned injustice into strength. The lesson? Don't stay silent against bias." Leavitt read it, heart swelling with quiet pride. Her victory had shifted the narrative, from silence to action, from division to unity. In his apartment, Pierce sat motionless, staring at the ceiling. The echo of his past hung in the air. He opened a worn notebook and began to write, not to defend himself, but to confront the truth. "I was wrong," he wrote, the words shaky. "Ideals can't justify injustice." It was a small, painful step toward accountability. Later that day, Caroline Leavitt stepped out of her office into the sunlight. She took a deep breath. The fight wasn't over, but she was ready. Her story had changed the way people viewed power, and she would keep pushing forward, carrying the voices of those still waiting for justice. Final note, the story of Caroline Leavitt and Captain Daniel Pierce reflects urgent realities in modern America. The consequences of political polarization, the danger of unchecked authority, and the power of individuals to drive systemic change. Pierce's decision to remove Leavitt from the plane, rooted in personal bias, became a national symbol of injustice. His downfall illustrates how even well-meaning ideals, when wielded with arrogance, can lead to oppression. Leavitt's journey, fueled by courage and community, shows how perseverance and truth can pierce through silence. Her story became a rallying cry for those afraid to speak out. The takeaway? Stand up, speak up. Whether conservative, liberal, or somewhere in between, fight against abuse wherever it